Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the News Today edition of 16th of January, wherein we pick up all important news of the day and explain it to you from the examination perspective. So let's look at the important topics which we're to cover today. First is there has been a Niti Aayog report which tells that if we are going to converge existing MSME schemes, it is going to make them more efficient in their functioning. Then we are celebrating 10 years of Startup India initiative. Recently, SEBI chairman has discussed that India leads in globally in the IPO numbers. In a recent event, India has shared that it is ready to share its digital public infrastructure with the Commonwealth nations. And lastly, Venezuelan opposition leader has agreed to offer her Nobel Peace Prize medal to US President. We are also going to see place in news that is Israel along with certain quick updates for the day. So the very first news is Niti Aayog, that is the policy think tank of the government, has come up in its recent report that in order to improve the efficiency of schemes which are there for MSME sectors for our country, if they are converged, then that is going to make those schemes more efficient. So MSME as a topic is very important for GS paper number 3 economics, because whenever we speak about, let's say, manufacturing sector of the economy, MSME sectors is considered as a backbone of manufacturing sector, and they are going to play a very great role with respect to the development of manufacturing sector in the Indian economy. So let's discuss firstly that why exactly there is a need for convergence of these multiple schemes. So again, as per the report, it tells currently the Ministry of MSME is running 18 schemes for these MSME sectors, and there are multiple schemes and there are many provisions in these 18 schemes which have overlapping objectives. So, matlab, a single scheme, and again there are multiple schemes, and all of these schemes have some kind of overlapping initiatives or objectives. So the problem which it is facing is, so the implementation is fragmented because multiple schemes are implemented through multiple ministries of the government. So that is leading to fragmentation, duplication of efforts, reducing of efficiency of that particular schemes, and sometimes these MSME people do not know which schemes are beneficial for them and which are not for beneficial for them as per their sector. Then there is something called as better translation of resources into outcomes, because government is investing money and resources in these schemes, right? So if these schemes are not efficient, so again it is again reflecting an idea that again the translocation of these money of the government and resources of the government are not reaching, or that is not efficient. So many times these MSME sectors get confused which schemes is beneficial for us, and there are multiple schemes with certain kind of overlapping principles. So with the convergence, it is going to solve the problem of simplifying the access for the beneficiaries, reducing paperwork, and it is going to ensure that every money and resource which is being spent on these schemes, it is going to create some kind of effect in these MSME sectors. So that's the basic idea. Then how exactly we are going to go for convergence? So convergence are there in two set. One is what is called as information convergence, because there are multiple data of these MSME sectors across the central and state governments. So they are telling, let's gather all such data together at a single platform, and then we are going to be in a better position to implement those schemes. So that is either with respect to better coordination among ministries, informed policy decision making, and we are going to avoid any kind of duplication with respect to implementation of these schemes. For example, recently the PM Gati Shakti scheme of the government has maybe integrated 16 central ministries data are integrated for implementation of this PM Gati Shakti scheme. Then the other approach which is being discussed is process convergence. Let's say there are multiple areas around which these MSME schemes are getting implemented. Let's say for finance, let's say for skill development, right? Let's say for cluster development of MSMEs. So why not to converge all these broad theme-based schemes into one category, right? So that's an idea where again merging of similar schemes and encouraging more collaboration among these ministries so that there will be a better implementation of those schemes. Recently, there is a Vigyan Dhara scheme, which is a central sector scheme of the government under Department of Science and Technology. So which is acting as an umbrella scheme covering three broader components, right? So that is how we are going to make these schemes around MSME sectors more efficient in their functioning and better utilization of government resources. Then how and what are the suggestions which has been given, that there are different clusters of MSMEs. What are these clusters? Let's say in a particular area there are only certain type of MSME sectors which are found, right? So why not to converge all such cluster based schemes into one scheme? So that is first basic idea recommendation that they're telling, that let's say we have a scheme for fund for regeneration of traditional industries, because there are many MSME sectors around traditional industries, and there is scheme for funding for them with the name of Sfurti, right? Then there is one other scheme for cluster development of scheme with respect to MSME cluster development program. So both of these schemes have same initiative or same idea for cluster development of MSME sectors. So why not to converge them? So this is going to strengthen the MSME clusters and avoid any overlapping mechanism around this cluster development program of the MSME sectors. Then why not to converge all schemes which are talking about skill development of people working in these MSME sectors? For example, entrepreneurship and business skills. For example, MSME technical skills. For example, training of rural and women artisans. So all of these skill development schemes which are there targeting the MSME sectors, why not to converge all of those schemes into one scheme? So that is one such suggestion. Then the next one is, we see, of course, the new area of technological development is artificial intelligence. So why not to create an AI based dashboard which is going to contain all piece of information regarding all such MSME schemes, and it is going to help a particular MSME sector, because many times there are a lot of schemes, so people get confused, okay, which scheme is best for me and for my MSME. So on the basis of certain data, certain questions which you are going to give to that AI based platform, it is going to tell you which scheme is most beneficial for you as per your MSME sector. So that is something which is being discussed, integration of artificial intelligence by creation of dashboards, right? So AI dashboards, right? Then there are a lot of large flagship programs of the government, right? So they are telling that let's leave this program altogether. इनको जो flagship programs है, let's not merge them. They are specifically for a specific intended, let's say, cause, and they are doing well. So let's make them digital. Let's not converge them, but similar kind of schemes, they need to be converged. So that's some basic idea. So example, Prime Minister Employment Generation Program, PM Vishwakarma, all of these are schemes which are independently performing brilliantly. So there is no need for converging these kind of schemes. And there is something, an idea wherein we're talking about making them digital, right? Then with respect to classification, again, a very important aspect for your prelims examination. So how we are categorizing as per the recent update. So these is the category with respect to investment and annual turnover, which is determining that which industry shall I call as a micro enterprise, which shall I call as a small enterprise, and which shall I call as a medium enterprise. So these were the current parameters with respect to investment, and earlier it was this, and for annual turnover this is the criteria. So again, please remember these facts because they are asked in your prelims examination. I'll take you through an example. So I think in the year 2023, which is very recent, there was one question that according to Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Act of 2006, the medium enterprises are those with investments in plant and machinery between 15 to 25 crores. So this is where these kind of facts comes into understanding with respect to question solving in examination. Then one more topic is all bank loans to micro, small and medium enterprises qualify under priority sector lending. Again, you must have read that in the banking chapter, that any funds which are being given to MSME sectors are qualified under priority sector lending. So first is incorrect, second is correct. That is how you need to understand from a topic which is there in news, what kind of questions can I expect in my examination, because that's what the use of news is. All of us as aspirants are reading newspapers, current affairs just to qualify this examination, right? So we have to be very much clear what kind of questions get translated from a particular news in the form of questions in prelims and mains examination. One question from mains: faster economic growth requires increased share of manufacturing sector in GDP, particularly the MSMEs. Comment upon the present policies of government in this regard. So again, we can discuss different policies of MSMEs, and in the suggestion we can tell how can these convergence of schemes, can we use this one point as a solution in my answer? Of course, yes. So this is where you understand these news give you certain kind of solutions as well, wherein you can quote, as per the recent Niti Aayog report, it has suggested that we need to converge these schemes for better implementation of schemes around MSME sector by the government. It could be one major point in your answers, and that's how you can use these current events in your answer writing as well. The next topic is, we are celebrating 16th of January as the 10-year celebration of the Startup India scheme by the government. So, and this is very important. Why? Because the anniversary years, 10 years, 15 years, 25 years. So whenever these schemes comes up in news celebrating certain years, they become very important for your examination. This is giving you a hint कि out of all schemes which are run by the government, this has completed 10 years. So there is a high probability of this scheme being translated in a form of a question in either prelims or my mains examination, right? So let's look at what exactly is this Startup India scheme. So wherein we are telling the whole idea of entrepreneurship culture is being promoted, where again we are telling that again the future leaders and entrepreneurs are the ones who are going to create jobs rather than going for jobs. That's an idea of Startup India scheme, right? So it started in the year 2016, 16th of January. So 10 years today, it is going to be completed of this. It is coming under Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So basically, from job seekers to job creators, that's an idea of this Startup India scheme. Then what are the three pillars around which government is providing support for Startup India initiative? So number one is with respect to simplification and hand holding. What is simplification? So many times to understand, whenever we are going to start any new business, any new thing, there are a lot of, let's say, challenges we face with respect to procedural thing. So this is where government is giving some kind of relaxation to the startups, wherein there are certain kind of easiness of rules of procedure whenever they are initiating, where again easier compliance and regulatory process, support for patents and IPRs, help with respect to market access. What is hand holding? Hand holding means कि whenever you are agreeing or in itself thinking that again I'm going to start a startup, then the government is going to support you through hand holding mechanisms like this. Then it is not ending here. With respect to funding, because of course startups require funds, so there is financial support also which is given by the government. So at different stages of a startup, because some startups are early startups, some are mature, some are in the middle of their let's say journey, right? So based upon the nature of startup, different kind of funds are being provided by the government. Number one is tax exemption. So again, they are getting tax exemption with respect to their profits, number one. Number two, what is seed funding? Again, you know this. Then funds of funds, wherein government, instead of going for direct funding of these startups, so through the SEBI, they are, let's say, funding in the venture capital funds. And then these investors from venture capital funds are investing in these startups. That is why I call it funds of funds. Then we have credit guarantee scheme. So there are credit mechanisms through which maybe collateral-free loans are being provided to these startups. That's how financially government is helping them. Then with respect to incubation and industry academia partnership, so this is where we are discussing an idea that why not to make an incubation center which is going to help these startups develop. So this pillar connects students, college, industries and startups at a single platform. Example is a Marg portal, mentorship, advisory, assistance, resilience and growth, because college students are the ones who are going to enter industries, right? And they are the ones who are going to start these startups. This is where this program is giving a incubation support to the startups. Then with respect to enablers and platforms which government is giving as a support for Startup India scheme is, number one is Startup India Hub, which is a one-stop solution platform for all startups. Then we have Bhaskar, that is Bharat Startup Knowledge Access Registry, wherein there is helping of the startups with respect to networking and with respect to discovery of different startups who are doing well in their respective field. Then we have Startups Intellectual Property Protection Scheme, wherein because startups are the ones, as I discussed, government is hand holding them, government is supporting them, so a faster IPR or patents approval are being given to these startups. So these are the kind of initiatives and platforms which are there and on these schemes. All of these are very, very important for your prelims examination, because we are celebrating 10 years of this Startup India scheme. Then with respect to how do we assess this 10 years of Startup India in our country? So number one is with respect to startup at a global level, where India is standing, it tells that India is the world's third largest startup ecosystem, right? In the 10 years, we have achieved this commendable thing. Then, as per DPIIT, around 2.909 lakh startups have registered in the last 10 years, and 120 plus unicorn startups which has a combined valuation of $350 billion are there. So that is again giving an achievement of the scheme in the last 10 years. And then it is again a source, as I discussed, the idea is from job seekers to job creators. So over 1 lakh jobs has been created, and it is again creating a multiplier effect in the economy. And again, there is some idea of inclusivity, because we generally see that women in the tech sector, maybe they face some kind of a glass ceiling effect. But here what we have seen, 45% of startups have at least one women director or partner, and 50% of startups are from tier 2 and tier 3 cities, wherein we are seeing idea of what inclusive growth as well in the startup culture. So with respect to Startup India, again, as I discussed, as it is completing 10 years, so all important schemes which are there, which coming under Startup India scheme are very important for examination. For example, ecosystem melee, we have discussed Startup India Hub. So competitive federalism, state startup ranking framework is there. For capital, we have funds of funds. We have discussed early funding, that is seeds. Then investor access is there through Startup India Investor Connect portal. We have risk mitigation, credit guarantee scheme for startups. So all of these are initiatives in support of the government with respect to startup culture in the country. Very important for your examination. Then what are the other schemes run by the government or running by the government with respect to startup ecosystem boost? Number one is, again, basics है, आप बिल्कुल देखिए सारे schemes को. Atal Innovation Mission, we know this. Then we have Gen Next support for innovative startups. We have Nidhi, that is National Initiative for Developing and Harnessing Innovations. We have Aspire program, a scheme for promotion of innovation, rural industries and entrepreneurship. So all of these schemes are also of the government, which is promoting the idea of startup culture. They can ask you in questions, please assess the 10 years of Startup India scheme and how do you see it is going to lead India with respect to employment generation. So all such parameters could be there as a form of mains questions, and the schemes what we have discussed, the initiatives what we have discussed can come up as a form of question in your prelims examination. So again, clarity has to be there कि questions किस तरीके से पूछे जाएंगे in your prelims and mains examination from certain current affairs which you are reading. Then the next topic is India leads globally in the number of IPOs which are registered in the company in the capital markets as per the recent discussion by the SEBI chairman of India, right? So what exactly are these initial public offerings? So IPO are basically whenever a company is growing bigger and it requires more fund for its development and its making it big, so it invites that again that they invite for, let's say, public to become something called as part owners, right? So this is the very first time, क्यों बोलते हैं इसे initial public offering? For the very first time the private company is selling its shares to the public, and that is why I call it as initial public offering. So through an IPO, a private company becomes what? A publicly traded company, and it is helping the company to raise some kind of a capital. Capital is not a debt capital, it is an equity, because public, through these buying of IPO shares, they are having a shareholding in these companies. So these are basically money without taking loans by the companies, and they are issued in what we call as, for the very first time we have discussed the difference between primary and secondary capital markets. So they are, for the very first time, when any new securities are being issued under IPO, they are in the primary capital markets. So as per the recent trend, so 311 IPOs has been raised with 1.7 trillion for the very first 9 months of current financial year, which is telling that how many IPOs are getting registered. It is signaling what in the economy? That again, investors are feeling very confident in the country, right? And that's why there is huge amount of investment in these IPOs. People are very much confident to invest over here. That shows maybe some kind of positive trend with respect to Indian economy, and this shows high investor confidence, of course, in Indian companies. Then with respect to why India IPO performance is very important, because number one, again as I discussed, it is India is number one in globally IPO count. More companies are choosing Indian markets, right? So that is again a signal with this. Then India is the third largest by value, as with respect to the IPO number. Large amounts of money are being raised through these IPOs. And lastly, capital markets play a very central role in funding business growth and job creation, because if companies are taking money, if they are investing in their company, of course we're going to see growth in the business, and it is of course going to create jobs. So again, a multiplier kind of an effect, it is being seen. Then a very important indicator is market capitalization to GDP ratio. ये हो गया आपका prelims का question. So they can ask you what is the definition, what is the meaning of market capitalization to GDP ratio? What is GDP? GDP means the net value of goods and services produced in the country. Assume the GDP of the country is, let's say, 100 rupees, right? And what is the market capitalization? Key, it tells key what is the total value of the listed companies, right, in the stock markets. That is market capitalization. Let's say the number of companies which are there, its market cap is, let's say, assume for the current trend, it is market cap is, assume, let's say 130 rupees. So it tells ki if the GDP of the country is 100, we have a market cap of 130. It is bigger than the GDP of the country. It basically tells that value of listed companies is now bigger and than India's annual GDP, showing what? That we have a very deep and mature capital market. Okay? So this is something that how it tells with respect to how the culture of IPO and how much investor friendly India is becoming with this kind of trends in the economy, right? So what exactly is capital market? As I discussed, long-term marketplace wherein there is long-term funds, both debts and equity kind of funds are raised and invested, and money is collected by the use for, of course, productive purposes. Businesses are collecting money for factories, infrastructure, technology. Again, it is creating what? Multiplier effect in the economy. And again, it is classified in two types: primary market, secondary market. Secondary markets, the primary markets, whenever new securities are being issued, it is happening through primary markets. Example, initial public offering. There are many other things. Secondary market, again, technically we can associate it with the stock markets, wherein buying and selling of existing shares are being done. Who are the ones who invest here? So participation includes financial institutions, banks, corporate entities, foreign investors, and just like common person, we as ordinary retail investors. And what kind of instruments are used in capital market? Both primary and secondary: equity shares, debentures, bonds, and preferential shares, right? Again, important topic for your prelims examination, because we have seen from capital markets, there are a lot of times UPSC has asked certain factual nature of questions, difference between bond, that, like, again, all such questions which you must have seen in the previous year questions of UPSC. The next topic is, again, one more thing is the key capital market reforms. What we have seen, again, a mains oriented question, with a, because we have seen in 1988, and again we have established Security and Exchange Board of India, SEBI, and it has come into effect in the year 1992. Then again we have again created establishing creditors rating agency, that how are these creditors rated. CRISIL is one such organization. Then we are giving depository services under the Act of 1996, that is institution that dematerialize shares, converting them into electronic form. We have a rolling settlement system. The currently it is T plus 3 days. So these are the few reforms in the capital markets of India. The next topic is India in a recent summit has told that it is ready to share its digital public infrastructure with Commonwealth countries. So what are Commonwealth countries? So Commonwealth countries are 56 independent and equal countries which consist of both developing as well as developed countries. So India is hosting a conference called as Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers of the Commonwealth countries for the very first time. And in this platform, India has conveyed the idea that it is ready to share its digital public infrastructure. Right. So what exactly is this DPI? All of you must have used UPI for transaction, right? All of you must have used Aadhaar cards. So many times government through these digital platforms are providing governance services. So these are basically called as digital public infrastructure. So again, through this public infrastructure or DPIs, government are providing services to the people in a very smooth manner, right? So key features include that they are shared by multiple departments. Aadhaar card is used multiple areas, UPI by used by multiple platforms, multiple banks. They are secure, they are interoperable because they can work with systems, different kind of systems together, and they are built on open standards and governed by enabling rules, that there are government which has come up with multiple rules with respect to digital public infrastructure. Recently, we have come up with DPDP Act and its implementation, right? So whenever we talk about DPI, it is a three-layered stack of DPI. What are the three layers? Number one is identity layer, which gives every person a unique identity. Example is Aadhaar. One is payments layer. We have seen UPI in the payment sector. So it enables low cost, real time, interoperable payment. Then data layer, it allows data to be secured, consent based data sharing. Example, account aggregator framework. So together, all of these three layers help citizens prove who they are, how they make payments, and how the sharing of data is going to happen. That's the utility of DPI. In this conference, the significance of DPI was being discussed. Let's see, it is helping with respect to what? Effective public service delivery. Where we talk about GEM portal. GEM portal is what? A procurement portal of the government wherein anyone can register and they can sell their products. So this is something with the help of what? Digital public infrastructure. Agar GEM platform hota hi nahi, can people register themselves? No. Then we have payment revolution. UPI with respect to the digital public platform for payment has created a revolution in the area of payment infrastructure. Then breaking language barrier. There are multiple, let's say, public infrastructure which are there with the help of AI. Multiple languages are, let's say, given through these, let's say, digital public infrastructure, so that any people, irrespective of their language, can use this DPI. Then e-governance, of course, very important. Umang app is here. Again, government is providing services For example, passports, Aadhaar. Then with respect to soft power diplomacy, this is where India has done commendably well with respect to digital public infrastructure. Now it's time that we are going to use it as a tool of diplomacy. We are going to help other countries, tell them the best practices, how we have developed our DPI, so that it can become a soft diplomatic tool between two countries. That is the significance of DPI. Then with respect to initiatives to take India DPI global, what it is doing, number one is India Stack global program. So again, the idea is ki sharing of India's DPI with the global community. It includes Aadhaar, UPI, UWin, API Setu, DigiLocker, Arogya Setu, Diksha, all such things where again India has done well. So it's high time through this platform, India is sharing what are the best practices one should adopt for with respect to digital public infrastructure, and in this case with the Commonwealth countries. Number two is under the G20 framework, we have something called as Global DPI Repository, which has been launched by India's G20 presidency. It acts as a knowledge repository, again, same best practices. Then we have bilateral cooperation between countries like Armenia, Sierra Leone, etc. to share India Stack. So all of these are initiatives with respect to India's DPI global initiatives. Then very recently, this is a very important news wherein all of we know what the Venezuela crisis is going on. So the leader of opposition of Venezuela has agreed, who has got the recent Nobel Peace Prize in the year 2025, that she has agreed to give away her peace prize to the US president. Now it has created some kind of a question. Can a person who has received a Nobel Peace Prize can give his or her peace prize to any other person? Is it transferable? Right. So this is the kind of a question which has developed with respect to the news which is there in this case. Then why Nobel Peace Prize is being given? Simple idea is, so the idea here is who has done the most or the best work for the fraternity between nations, reduction of standing armies, and promotion of peace is the criteria according to the bill of Alfred Nobel. Then who that person is going to be given the Peace Nobel Prize. It is awarded by the Norwegian Nobel Committee. It has started since 1901, and this Peace Prize, apart from other Nobel Prizes, is only awarded in Norway. Rest are awarded in Sweden. So that's the basic details around Nobel Peace Prize. With the kind of transfer of Peace Prize, again it has created as a question: can a Nobel Prize, Peace Prize, be given to someone else? Does the holding the medal mean becoming a Nobel laureate? Let's say the US president is not getting the medal of Nobel Peace Prize. Does it make him a Nobel Peace Prize laureate? That is a basic idea, and this has led to discussions on finality of this prize and transferability of the medal. So let's discuss basic facts around this. That then, what is the criteria for giving this Nobel Peace Prize? So after World War II, the prize honors efforts in 4 major areas. Number one is arms control and disarmament, peace negotiations across the globe, democracy and human rights efforts, and creating a better organized and more peaceful world. But now, what is the current problem which 21st century is facing? The problem of climate change. So again, there has been multiple efforts in the direction of climate change across the globe. So one more criteria has been added with respect to limit harm from man-made climate change and protecting the environment. These are also considered as a parameters to give Nobel Peace Prize. So from India in 1979, Mother Teresa has got 14th. Dalai Lama in 1989 from India has got Nobel Peace Prize. Kailash Satyarthi in 2014 has got Nobel Peace Prize. So all of them awarded for peace, human rights, and humanitarian work. So then let's discuss if the Venezuelan person who has got the Peace Prize, if she is transferring or giving her medal to the US president, does it make US president as a Nobel Peace Prize laureate? So that is a question, right? So it tells once a Nobel Peace Prize is announced, then it cannot be revoked, number one. It cannot be shared with any person. It cannot be transferred, right? So, and these decisions are final and they are valid for all time. So with respect to transferability, there is a distinction. If I am giving my medal to someone, does that make that person a Nobel Prize laureate? So that is the question. So again, the prize and the title, of course, are not transferable, right? And the medal itself is transferable. You can give your medal to someone else for some social cause. I'll show you an example, right? So the medal can be gifted, it can be loaned, it can be displayed, it can be auctioned, but the prize and the title, it is not transferable. So in this case, even if the prize or the medal is transferred, for example, the Ukraine in there, the Mr. Dmitry has auctioned his Nobel Peace Prize medal, and he has raised a money of $100 million, and the purpose was to support refugees from the Ukrainian war. So this shows what? That the symbol or the medal can move and the honor, but the person who has given that peace prize, the title, what he has got, it cannot move, right? So in this case, even if the medal is being given to the US president, that does not make him the Nobel Prize laureate. So Nobel Peace Prize is a permanent recognition and medal is a physical object, right? That can change hands. Offering the medal is symbolic and it does not make the recipient a Nobel laureate. So that's a broad idea with respect to Nobel Peace Prize, very important for your prelims examination. Moving on to the place in news, that is Israel. The capital, of course, here is Jerusalem. So India and Israel has signed a joint ministerial declaration of intent to strengthen cooperation in fisheries and aquaculture. So many times these kind of agreements come into the news, and that makes certain place very important. So whenever these places are there, you are going to locate them in the map. Where is Israel? Very important strategic position in West Asia, the bordering countries, the maritime boundaries, Mediterranean Sea, Red Sea, right? Geographically, what is there? Where is Jordan River? Where is Sea of Galilee? All of these, where is Dead Sea? So all of these are important locations which are mentioned here, which you are going to locate and see in the map. That's how you are going to prepare certain important places in news, because we have seen UPSC ask questions like this. They can give you two match the following: place in news and why in news, and you need to match the following. That is where these kind of exercises are going to help you down to prepare your place in news section from the newspapers. Moving on to the quick updates of the day. We are going to celebrate the Republic Day on 26th of January. So in this year, the chief guests are from the presidents of European Union Council and European Commission. They are the chief guests. So it is reflecting what? India-European Union strategic partnership, because we understand that sanctions which US has put us, this is a very important partnership between India and the EU. So what exactly is this EU Council? EU Council as a body was formed or established in the year 1958. The role is for lawmaking plus policy coordination of European Union. It represents EU member governments. Members are national ministers, issue-based, and the presidency is given for a 6-month rotation. Currently, the presidency lies with Cyprus and headquarters is in Brussels. Then with respect to EU Commission, again it was established in the year 1958. It is the executive arm of European Union. It proposes law, enforces treaties, implement policies, and members consist of one commissioner from per country, and headquarters again is in Brussels. So again, the dignitaries are invited as a chief guest for Republic Day. So that makes this body important for your prelims examination. The next topic is periodic labor force survey has conducted it, and it has showed in the recent survey that there is an upward trend with respect to labor force participation rate in the economy. It includes people above 15 years of age. So again, it releases different kind of data with respect to, it is conducted by National Statistical Office. Again, important facts for your prelims examination. Ministry is Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. The purpose is estimating key labor market indicators at all India level. Methodology, current weekly status. What is current weekly status? That activity status based on last 7 days preceding the survey data. What is labor force participation rate? Percentage of population working, seeking and available for work. What is workforce population ratio? Percentage of employed persons in the population. What is unemployment rate? Percentage of unemployed among the labor force. Important, very important definitions from your economics unemployment topic in your prelims examination, right? The next topic is Womania initiative. So again, we understand, we have discussed government e-marketplace, a GEM portal. So again, in this initiatives, it is helping women with respect to this women initiative. First of all, Womania initiative is completing 7 years. So that is why it is there in news. It was launched in the year 2016. Objective of GEM portal was to transplant inclusive, efficient government procurement. People can register their products in the GEM portal, and through that GEM portal, government is doing procurement for different requirements, right? So Womania initiative is where it enhances the participation of especially women entrepreneurs and self-help groups in the GEM portal. It is direct, transparent, fully digital access to government buyers. It eliminates any intermediaries. Let's say if I am a women SHG worker, I have some kind of product, I need not to go for any, let's say, third party. I am directly going to register my product in the GEM portal, and government will go for procurement process. That has been leading to what? Something called as women economic empowerment. So achievements are, as of 14 January 2026, women-led MSEs have registered 2 lakh plus and 80,000 plus crores share in total GEM portal with an order value of 4.7% with this women initiative. Again, you can use these kind of examples in your paper number 1 GS, role of women organizations. You can discuss this initiative as a part of prelims questions in the examination. Then we have tax residency certificate. Let's say if I am a resident of a particular country, I am supposed to pay tax in that country, of course. Let's say if I have multiple business in multiple countries, so in order to avoid duplication of tax or double tax, there is something called as tax residency certificate. Why it is in news? Why? Because there is a company which is called as Mauritius-based Tiger Global Flipkart stake sale. It has told, the Supreme Court of India has told, that any capital gain which you have gained by selling your shares is taxable in India. Why? Because TRC, that is tax residency certificate, alone cannot secure treaty benefits. For example, again, as I discussed, for a particular financial year, just to avoid double taxation, TRC certificates are being given, but that is not sufficient, and that is not sufficient enough for such kind of capital gains by using some kind of loopholes. So again, the authorities basically can test the economic substance and beneficial ownership, and it is again, let's say, making that a bilateral pact to avoid between countries to avoid double taxation of people. Then we have sea location and dark fiber. Recently, Security and Exchange Boards of India has talked about that. Again, it has given in principle approval to settlement applications of National Stock Exchange in co-location and dark fiber cases. What is co-location? Let's say, you understand, stock markets are very much working in a microseconds. Things are changing. Let's say if I am a broker, if my trading or my, let's say, device is located in proximity with the stock exchange data center, is it not going to make my, let's say, mechanism of working very quick, very faster? So the benefit is, if brokers place trading servers inside the exchange data center with, of course, the fees being charged, the benefit is less distance, faster price data, and quick trade execution. It will not take time. An issue is preferential access, unfair advantage. अब हम सेबी का काम क्या है कि पूरे देश में कैपिटल मार्केट्स में there has to be some kind of fairness in the trading mechanism. Is it a fair mechanism? No. Then we have dark fiber. So many times unused optical fiber cables are given privately. It enables ultra fast data transfer between 2 points, and the issue is speed advantage for select traders. So all of these two are ensuring that fair and equal access is not there, and SEBI tells we must ensure fair and equal access, and speed asymmetry is something called as market distortion. That is why this decision have been taken. The next is IMD and Mission Motion. Both are very important. IMD as an organization, Mission Motion as an initiative of the government. So it is IMD is completing 151 years of its establishment, and there are 200 automatic weather stations deployed in 4 major metro cities of the country. So IMD as a body important. Ministry of Earth Sciences, 1875. Headquarters New Delhi. The role is weather forecasting and extreme weather warnings. Mission MOSM, it is an aim to upgrade India's weather and climate capability, better observation, modeling and early warning system. And agencies are IMD, Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, National Center of Medium Range Weather Forecasting. Basic facts hai 151 years complete hua hai. So again a topic important for your examination. Then one last is Kiladi, again a very important from Indian art and culture or ancient history perspective. So researchers from Birbal Sahani Institute of Paleosciences has reconstructed the past climate records on peninsular India using sediment analysis. Again, it has been conducted where specifically on the Kondagai inland lake located in Sivaganga district of Tamil Nadu. The lake is close to what we call as Kiladi, an important archaeological site of the country. It is located where 12 kilometers from southeast of Madurai. The site is known for what? Evidence of sophisticated urban civilization of the Sangam period, again linking your ancient history. So Sangam period important for examination because it is in news. Kiladi is a boundary at the Vaigai to the north, right? And the study has identified that 3 major climatic phases during the late Holocene period. And the climatic phases shows strong links with what? There has been some kind of monsoon variability, lake hydrology and human activity. The findings help understand climate civilization interaction in South India. And lastly, the study has applications in weather forecasting, disaster mapping and wetland lake restoration. Such kind of news is very important. It makes certain important topic of history back in news, and that gives you a hint that this topic is important from examination perspective. So with this, we come to an end of today's discussion on news today. All important questions which are there from the topics what I have discussed will pop up in your screen. It is your responsibility now to solve all those questions. That is going to help you better prepare for current affairs in this examination. Lastly, Vision has come up with digital current affairs platform. Please go and explore this website. It is a one-stop solution for your current affairs preparation for the examination. So till the next time, thank you so very much and have a good night.